I've got 3 garments to show you today. They are all skirts. They are part of a pattern that has like a billion options, and I chose the skirt. Ta-da! Colorful happy skirt. And I've also done some hacks, fake button band, ruffles galore. It'll be a super fun video to watch, so come along. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're always stopping by, and if you're new to the channel here, you will always see a lot of practical sewing content, techniques that you can see up close and maybe apply them to your own sewing at home with similar projects. So if you think that's a cool idea, go ahead and subscribe, tap on the bell so you don't miss out when new videos go live, usually 2 to 3 or even 4 times a week now. Just recently, I tested the Allegro Bottoms for Love Notions. Now, this is a re-release because this pattern has already been in existence. And actually, I made a video about this pattern last year in May. In that opportunity, I made a pair of pants and a pair of shorts. And then a little while later, I made a skirt. In this pattern, there are 7 views. There are so many options to choose just within this pattern. And that's why it's called bottoms. It's not called shorts or skirts, and it's because there are all these things available here. What all these views have in common is that they are a pull-on style with a curved waistband, a drawstring that you thread through to bring it in, so very comfortable at the waist. And then you have shorts, pants and skirts. The shorts come in 5 and 9 inseam options, the pants cropped and full length. Both the shorts and the pants could be hemmed normally, or you can add cuffs. There's separate pattern pieces for that. And also for the pants version, you can sew them as joggers with like an elastic on the bottom. So that was an option that wasn't included before, and I think that would be nice with really drapey fabrics. I would try that in maybe a rayon, but I mean, I've never worn woven joggers. It would be a new style I would have to play with. And the skirts, there's a short version above the knee and a long one that's ankle length with slits up to the knee. All of these have optional slash pockets and back patch pockets. Why was this pattern retested and re-released? The version that was available before came in sizes extra small to 3XL, and Tammy, the owner of Love Notions, has been working through her existing patterns to update the blog and to increase the size range. So this one now, instead of having that type of alphanumerical sizing, now comes from sizes 0 to 32. Drafting in that way for pants is much more accurate, and it's easier for you to choose your size as well. Now, if you've made the Allegro pants before, like I have, you might think, what's the difference? How are they going to fit differently? Basically, the only changes that were made, and they were just small tweaks, was removing some of the ease in the back leg and lengthening the rise a little bit. So that's all. Otherwise, the style is the same. They would look pretty much similar to the old version, only everything's just been perfected. This pattern is $5 for today, Friday, as a feature Friday pattern. And because it's a re-release, it'll be on a discounted price for a week, 25% off. So if you didn't grab it today, Friday, then on Saturday and the next following days, it's going to be 25% off. Grabbing it today will make it much cheaper. So go ahead and get it if you like this style. You can make so many things. You know, you could use this pattern and make 20 garments, and they're all different because of all the options. So I really enjoy that. As always, if you purchase from my affiliate link, I make a small commission from that sale at no extra cost to you, and that supports me, what I do in this channel. This is a pattern drafted for woven fabrics, light to medium weight woven fabrics, linen, chambray, rayon blends, poplin. I have made 3 garments, and I've chosen 3 different types of fabrics. I chose a bottom weight crepe in a really happy print, and it's a gorgeous fabric. You're gonna see it in a little bit. I also chose a scrap of a lightweight gray denim, and the third one is one you might have already seen in the past because it's a refashion as such, and that is made of 100% rayon. So 3 different types of fabric for the same pattern. Now, in the testing phase, you can choose what view you want to make. I am a big skirt wearer. I wear a lot of skirts. I wear them all the time, more than I do pants. And I was just in the right headspace to make skirts right now. So I signed in for the short skirt above the knee version. Now, about the sizing, as I mentioned, it's in numbers now from 0 to 32. and the measurement at the hips for the largest size is 59.5 inches. There are also other measurements in the sizing chart that sometimes you might not see, thigh measurements and calf measurements. So that is awesome information to know for the sizes if you need to blend between sizes. If you have larger thighs or you have larger calves, you know, you can make those changes, so those measurements being there is really good. Now, the intended fit of these pants, I'm talking about the pants right now, is that they are semi-fitted at the hips and the thighs. Of course, because it's an elastic, it's going to be roomy at the waist and it's going to be brought in with an elastic. But down below, that's the intended fit, and then it tapers down to the ankle. So there'll be about 2 to 3 inches of positive ease around the hips, depending on the size. And for the skirt version, there is about 4 inches of positive ease, 3 to 4. So the skirt is A-lined, it has a little bit more room than the pants. For the skirts and the pants and everything, there is a little chart with really detailed measurements of the finished lengths. And looking at the finished length of the short skirt above the knee, I needed a lot of extra length. If I made it the original length, I would end up with a mini skirt. I'm tall, I'm 5'8", and the way my body is made is not very proportionate. I have a short torso, and then most of my length comes from the waist down to my feet. So I have pretty long, like, pelvic area and then legs. So I always need to make huge length adjustments to skirts and pants that I sew. So I took those measurements provided, I checked it on the pattern. I know what I like my finished skirts to be at above my knee, which was the intended fit. So I added 3 inches. There is a short and a lengthened line on the skirt where you can do that, and I added my 3 inches that I needed. So I mentioned I made 3 skirts. The first one I'm going to show you is the one I made during testing. Means I made everything by the book, followed the instructions to the T, everything perfect like it should be. And it's a really beautiful print, and just looking at it and even just thinking about it makes me really happy. What you're gonna see is an overview of the view that I've chosen. But you know, concepts that you see might apply to the other versions as well, of course. And I am going to concentrate on how to construct this curved waistband with an elastic inside, the drawstring, all the little details about that. I know sometimes these types of waistbands can be confusing for a lot of people. So I tried to make it really clear so that if you see a waistband like this, you're like, yeah, I can go for that, I can do it. So that is what you're going to see next. Let's hop over there to up close and so personal. Making the knee length skirt, and I have my pattern pieces here. I'm using a bottom weight crepe for this skirt. It's still a nice and drapey fabric, so I think it's going to hang beautifully, and the print in there is gorgeous as well. Both the back and the front are cut on the fold. This lash line is for the pocket. That piece is the one that goes behind there. That is the pocket bag that goes attached to there. And then we have curved waistbands, 2 of each. This is the main fabric for the front, it's cut on the fold, and I'll be using contrast fabric on the inner waistband. And that is the back waistband. This is the inner one that I'll be using. On the back waist, you have double notches that match the notch of the back waistband, so it's really easy to put them together. I'm using leftover tencel twill to do the inner waistbands. It's going to look pretty, and it's going to be soft against the skin, and it's lightweight so that the waistband is not bulky. As I said, this fabric is heavy. I mean, it's not heavy, but it's bottom weight. It's not the lightest of fabrics, and I want my waistband to be less bulky. And also, I didn't have enough to cut 2 of these for many reasons. So that is the print there. It's a very vibrant pink. And then it's got large flowers with blue and white and black. I just love it. I'll show you how I did that and why next. This is the top part of the skirt, and it could be the same for the shorts. You have that slant there for where the pocket is going to go. And I have great results with stabilizing this area with just a strip of fusible interfacing. I wanted it to be white, so this specific one is actually cotton interfacing. Otherwise, I only had knee interfacing in. Lies with that because knee interfacing doesn't really do the trick. It's important when you're fusing things not to go and rub everything, like don't move the iron back and forth, just let it fall. So now this area that's slanted is going to be super stable and it's not going to stretch out. I have already serged these edges. I'll be sewing and pressing them open separately because I find the fabric is thick enough to be able to do that, to have a nice result. I wouldn't want these two together because, you know, it's a bottom weight fabric. It's not a light fabric as such. I have the main skirt here. You can see the top, the pockets have been sewn, the side seams have been sewn. Everything has been pressed open inside. I like my side seams pressed open. So the main skirt's done. I still have a raw waist on the top. This is the front waistband. That little red dot marks the middle there. And there were buttonhole markings to transfer onto the fabric. So I've just transferred that with a pen. And you're meant to fuse a small piece of interfacing on top. I've got white interfacing and I can actually see my buttonhole markings under there. These are the little buttonholes where the little drawstring is going to come out of. So this area does need to be stabilized for that. This needs to be done before assembling the waistband. I've made my marks on the right side of the waistband there, and I'm going to do 2 buttonholes because they're going to be on a white area of the fabric. I've swapped my thread to white. They need to be small buttonholes. They don't need to be large ones because it's just for a little drawstrings. You can see the blue mark under there and how I center my presser foot there. I actually even hooked the needle in to make sure it's going to start where I want it to, and then I start. So there are very neat buttonholes in white, so they're not going to stand out. On the other side they're pink, but you're not going to see that. I've got the waistband pieces here, the main ones and the ones that will go inside, and I've just pinned the sides there on both of them. The main one, I'm going to sew it with 3/8 of an inch and press the seam open normally. The one that's going to go inside, I'm going to sew one normally, and one of the others I'm going to leave a gap there. I'll sew a little bit there and then a little bit there and leave a gap in the middle because that's where the elastic is going to go through at a later stage. I have marked really clearly the direction of these waistbands. They are slightly curved, if you can see there. Not terribly so, but slightly curved. There's double notches there that will match the waist of the back, so that's easy. I've sewn all the waistbands, those little seams there from the main waistband and the lining waistband. This is the side I left an opening on right there, and the other side has been sewn normally. So I've got my main there and I'm going to put the lining one on top. Make sure the front is with the front. So these are the 2 fronts there. All these markings here are the bottom part of the waistband, and now we want to line up the top part of the waistband and sew that. So I'm going to align these seams, pin all the way around and sew the top edge. The top edge is the one that doesn't have the markings, that doesn't have the notches or anything like that. So it would just be one round seam at 3/8 of an inch. Make sure when you're sewing that you're sewing the top of the waistband, meaning that all the bottoms that have notches and stuff, that's not the side that you're sewing. So I've sewn the waistband. I have sort of opened it there and pressed the seam allowance towards the lining. So you can see it there, it's pressed towards the lining waistband, or the one that's going to go inside. Now this needs to be understitched as well, so that when this is folded, the lining waistband stays inside and you can't see it. I'm not going to be trimming down the seam allowance. 3/8 is fine, and I don't have like an interfaced bulkier area here, so I'm just going to leave it like that. So I've put my edge foot again. I have blue thread because I'll be understitching on top of the blue fabric and I want it to look nice. I just sewed the waistband as you saw, sewed these 2 together and then understitched in there and then pressed everything nice and neatly. And now I just need to attach this waistband onto the skirt. It will be attached to the skirt together, like as one piece. So here where the buttonholes are, that will go right sides together to the skirt. So you're going to see the lining fabric on the outside. I will match the side seams here, follow the notches that are provided, and then just sew all around the top of the skirt. This way of putting the waistband on is super easy, easier than other ways. Once the waistband is sewn on, you can serge the edges, and then you have this opening to put the elastic through. This is the inner waistband. Now, because it's been understitched and pressed, and you can see it sort of starts below the main waistband, and that's the whole idea of understitching that you don't see, you end up with a bit of excess here of this side when you try to match them up. So you can see that excess there, and I'm going to trim it off. The other thing I've done, because the two layers were sort of sliding onto each other, it was like hard to keep them neat, I just pasted them together close to the edge. But this excess of the inner waistband or the lining waistband will happen with this method. When you sew waistbands on the other way, where you sew this onto the garment and then the other one on the outside, you can sort of manipulate the length at the back. But for this case, there's a little bit of excess, and you can see how it's going to match nicely. And it's going to be the same, only this one ended up being slightly shorter because of the understitching. So I've got the waistband right sides together with the skirt. The waistband is one piece because I basted it together, but if it's not basted together, it can still be sewn the same way, only that I find that basting stitch is going to make it easier. Now I just have to sew on the round. So that's how the waistband is going to look. And then on the wrong side, you need to press the seam allowance down towards the skirt and serge the edges. Now you would think, why don't I use bias binding? I don't want to use bias binding there because it would add bulk there, and remember, this is going to be all gathered in, with an elastic, so the less bulk there the better. So the waistband's looking super neat. I've pressed it down towards the skirt, serged the edges with navy blue serger thread, and now I'm ready to find that opening that I've left here to thread my elastic. I put the elastic around my waist at how I feel it comfortable, snug but not too snug. All I do to thread it through is use a big safety pin. I have never used any other technology than that. So from that side seam in the lining waistband, I have these two bits poking out. I made sure nothing's bent or folded onto another direction in there, that it's all straight. And then I'm just going to zigzag that together. Nothing really special about the zigzag, it's just that it's going to allow the elastic to stretch inside, and it does the job. It holds it together, and then this can just put back in through that opening, and then you can close that little opening by hand. Now that the elastic is inside, this needs to be stretched so that the elastic lies flat, and then you need to sew two parallel rows here, dividing the waistband in sort of thirds, and then the middle section is what is going to allow the drawstring to go through. So I'll be sewing sort of at a 1/2 inch and then at a 1/2 inch again around that. And look, I'm keeping the elastic straight, but I'm not pushing it. I'm letting the feed dogs do it, so I'm not being forceful with the machine. I've got pink on the top and blue on the bobbin. And now I just have to do this one more time, sort of in the middle there, and then that'll be it really. Then I just have to hand hem and put the little drawstring through. This is my gorgeous skirt. I absolutely love it. This is a bottom weight crepe. It's not a light fabric, it is a bottom weight fabric, and it drapes beautifully. I've mentioned before that the weight of fabrics doesn't really correlate to the drape. So you can have really lightweight fabrics that don't drape very nicely, and you can have heavier fabrics like this that drape beautifully, and it's just the way the fabric was woven. So this is one of those thicker fabrics that drape beautifully and is really appropriate for pants and skirts. The slash pockets there have been top stitched, super beautiful. And I have in there the pocket bag made out of a contrast chambray that I used because I wanted to have less bulky, the same as I did for the waistband, as you saw there, the same chambray. It matches the blue tones there, so it does look nice. And the drawstring I made from scraps as well. Now the drawstring is a sort of decorative feature for me, at least. I think the elastic inside the waistband is enough to hold the skirt up. But I think it does look cute. I mean, it's a cute feature and I loved making it. That was super fun. Now, if you're not familiar with these types of pockets, this is the inside view. In last year's video of the Allegros that I produced, I filmed really detailed instructions on how to sew slash pockets. So no matter what pattern you might be looking at with slash pockets, you can see the concepts there really clearly in up close footage as always. So I did not film this for you this time, but they are there, very neat, all serged. I pressed the seams open because this fabric is heavier, so I didn't really want the bulk of just the seams going to the back, you know. But I mean, this waistband was the easiest waistband to put together compared to others, and I hope you give these waistbands a go. They do fit nicely, and you know, it's a comfortable style to wear. So what you saw about the waistband can also apply to the pants because it's actually the same technique, same as the pockets. It's done the same for the pants and the skirt. So love these. Have a look at how it fits. This is how my skirt looks. You can see it's slightly A-lined. Because the fabric is semi-structured, you can really see the shape, and I really like that. Hits right above the knee with the length adjustments that I made. Slash pockets. And I've just got it half tucked in to show a little bit of the waistband here and the tie. I could just wear it normal like that too, but I think this top actually is a bit long for this style. At the back it's okay, but at the front I'd like a bit of definition, so I think I will just half tuck it in like that. I think that looks nice. I really like this skirt. The print is so happy. Here you can see up closer, I have hand hemmed it so you can't see any stitching. I think that looks really nice. And the details here of the waistband, little buttonholes that have this drawstring. I don't find the elastic to be that much there, like I don't feel it to be bulky around the waist at the back. And this hits my natural waist. I wouldn't want to wear it lower than this. It's right at the waist where I like it to be. And I think if this was made in a solid with lots of top stitching, that would look nice too. So I'm super happy with this skirt, super comfortable. I think this print would also look super nice with like a white top, but it's so hard for me to actually go and wear a white top. In theory, I know it looks beautiful and I know white suits me, so maybe I would wear this with a white blouse I made last year, buttoned down at knots at the front. I think I would just always be drawn to picking up the darker color in the print and wearing that on top. I think it's a bit more flattering. But you know, I have white or blue to choose from. I would never find the right pink, so I wouldn't wear anything pink on top. I think this is bright enough and happy enough to have a light or a darker color on top, and I feel amazing in this outfit. It's just so me. I really like the print, and I think this print could have only worked for something on my bottom half, really. I love it. Basically, when I was done with my pattern test, I had that sensation of wanting to make more. And it's a thing that happens when you really like the pattern. And I can tell you this happened to me last year as well, because when I made the shorts, I thought, let's make the pants and let's make the skirt, because they're just really, really fun projects to sew. They fit so well, and and these garments are such wearable styles. I mean, these are the ones you're going to reach for all the time. So when I finished my colorful one, I had a look around my stash thinking I'd love a denim one. I found a small scrap of denim, gray denim, lightweight denim actually, it's not heavy, and thought I've got to make this happen because I know I'm gonna wear this denim style a lot. Being a solid, you know, I can play with top stitching. I didn't have enough fabric to make this traditionally, so I came up with a hack on the go and ended up with a sneaky little seam, and then to cover that sneaky seam I put something on top to make it look like a fake button band. So it's a really fun hack and I filmed it for you, so let's see that one now. It's like a more up close and so personal. I've got the smallest piece of grey lightweight denim. It's like the smallest piece, and for some reason I used part of that selvage for other things, so that took away from the width I had, but you know, I knew that was going to happen someday. I'm still going to make an Allegro skirt, just with little bits of modification that you won't really be able to tell. I've got the fold here, and that's the back piece, and right against the edge, like there's no space in between the two pieces, that's the front over there. Over there on the center front, I'm going to have a little seam, thinking I'm going to make a feature of that seam on the front, so I left it there. For the pocket lining, the piece that goes behind there, I'm going to place it on the cross grain. And you know, when I'm working with scraps, I'm really liberal in that type of thing, same as when I'm doing refashions. I don't think it's going to make such a difference, and I've had to make the piece smaller to fit into that space right there. And then when I have that cut out, I'll adapt the size of the pocket bag so that they're the same. This little piece here will not be enough for the waistbands at all, but it'll be enough to do the detail I want to do on the front, which is cut a piece, a long piece that I'll interface and sew over that seam, and then I'll put buttons down the front, and it's going to look like a fake button down skirt. I don't have any more fabric, and I do love the yoga waistbands. This is a fabric piece that was left over, and actually this fabric does have minimal stretch. It's that denim that has just that little bit of give, but because this fabric is like that, it stretches, right? And I want to cut a long piece to put vertically on the front piece, and I don't want to be sewing something that's going to stretch vertically because it's going to look horrible. So to manipulate the fabric and get rid of that stretch, I just interfaced it. So this is not stretch interfacing, and when you interface it, all that vertical stretch goes away, and then I'll be able to sew this going down, because actually this piece that's cut like this is across the grain. This is the wrong side of the front skirt. Now this is supposed to be cut on the fold normally, but because of my fabric situation, I did have to add a seam there, and it's tiny. Look, it's like a 1/4 inch seam. So the pockets are on, there's the seam, and now I want to cover this seam with a piece of fabric that you saw me cut and interface, and that's going to be like a visual effect. So this is what I've done. That's that long interfaced piece. So I wanted my finished width there to be 1.5 inches there, so I measured that and then added 3/8 to one side and 3/8 to the other, just to cut a long rectangle. So I have pressed 3/8 of an inch in there, I've pressed 3/8 of an inch in there, and the finished width here is 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna put this on top of the seam there and just like cover that center seam. I'll be really careful to place it really centered so that it's straight. I'm just gonna pin that and hand baste that super accurately, and then I'm gonna top stitch with this same top stitching thread I've been using there. So I'm gonna sew on the edge there and sew on the edge there. I would have loved to have that sort of brassy colored metal buttons, but the ones I have are too tiny. I think they would look strange. So I think I'm just gonna have to put these. I have 6, so I'm just gonna calculate and just put them on at even distances. This is just visual. There's nothing different about the fit here. It's just something visual to hide a seam. Remember I said I'd folded each of these raw edges by 3/8 of an inch, so that is about there, and I decided to top stitch at 1/4 of an inch, so it looks like it's actually a placket, so it'll be slightly raised there. It's all closed because I did a larger fold there, so that's how that looks. That's really cool. Now the hem, I have pressed it all up super neatly before sewing it, so it's easier, and I want the hem to start behind this little flap. So I've pinned these towards the center there, and I'm going to be careful to start around there so that when this comes over it looks more natural. I don't want to sew over this thing at all. That would look terrible. If you see that, that's the only amount of top stitching thread from this color that I have left. So I hope it's enough to do the hem. To make the top stitching really visible, I'm using a longer stitch length of 3.5. I'm just going to be careful to get that needle in through there. There. And I'm not going to back tack. That's where I started sewing, so I'm going to release that pin, and you can see this is going to cover the start of that hem there, and it's going to look more natural. Keep going till I get to the other side and end around there. This is my denim one. So this is the same size, the same pattern, everything the same. It'll fit the same. The only difference is that underneath what I've sewn on there, as you saw, there is a seam. And you know, I could have made that seam a feature and top stitched it, whatever, but my seam allowance was so small, 1/4 of an inch. You can't really do much with that. I didn't really think it was going to be a nice feature to have that seam being visible there. So I decided to do that. I mean, I love doing stuff like this that make the skirt look so different when it's actually the same thing. This is not functional. The buttons are sewn on at equal intervals. You know, I've got 6 little buttons, so I just divided that length into 7, did my dots, sewed on my buttons, and I think sewing this piece further away from the edge makes it look more real, like it is a button band. You know, instead of sewing it really on the edge, and then I think it will look even more fake than it already is. So I'm really happy with that. What I did have to change though was the size of the pockets inside. I just had to make them a little bit smaller, but everything here is the same, like it doesn't change. And let's be honest, am I gonna put things in my pockets? No, these are for show. And I love the top stitching. I barely had enough to finish the hem. And yeah, I barely had enough. I had like tiny bit left. I love how that turned out on the front. You've seen how I did that. I didn't want to sew the seam on top of that feature there. I think that way it looks more natural. I've pressed open my seam allowances. The pockets are neatly serged inside, so there's nothing that interesting to see inside. And I do have a yoga waistband. I did film a very detailed step-by-step tutorial on how to do the waistbands in this way in last year's Allegro video. Very detailed because I made my pants with that type of waistband. Totally possible. What I've used here is heavy weight cotton, 90% cotton, 10% spandex. Great stretch, great recovery. You'll be able to stretch it with no drama to fit the top of the waist. And when you put it on, this just stretches to your shape and it feels so lovely on. It's really hard for me to actually do a normal waistband now that I've done these, and they just feel so amazing. And now I've got to tell you, I went out there and I saw a tree full of flowers. We are in autumn, and you know, in most places autumn means that the trees are like looking pretty sad. Not here. There's trees around my neighborhood called Ipe Rosa. Rosa is pink, so they have pink flowers. They have the same trees with yellow flowers, red flowers, but these are the rose colored ones. Gorgeous. Flowers falling all over the floor. So I went out there and took pictures just to make them a bit different, so it's not always in the same place in front of my house. So let's see how it fits. Same Allegro, same pockets, just a sneaky little center seam covered with this fake button band, and it just looks totally different. I love the top stitching. Back there is the button band. I have those chunky buttons spaced evenly. There's 6 buttons. There's nothing, you know, it's totally safe. And I love these things because they never gape because they're fake. I was working with limited fabric, so I have my trusty yoga waistband, super comfortable. So many bees while I was there. I could just see them and hear them on top of me. Yeah, I'm pretty scared of them, but I love them. I love bees. I think they're amazing. The third one, I hadn't planned it at all, but I suddenly had the inspiration now. Last year, I made the maxi skirt version of the Allegro Bottoms. Actually, I don't think the skirts have changed that much from the original version. maybe some tweaks here and there, but they look pretty much the same. They have the same pockets, all that sort of stuff. And I made a maxi one out of 100% rayon. Now, when I made that one, I hadn't made a maxi in over 20 years, I think. When I was 20, I made a white maxi with a slash on the side, super pretty. I think I wore that quite a lot, but I've always just felt very strange in long skirts. And no matter what people say that they're fine, you know, I look okay, I just don't. I just can't. And I gave it my best shot last year by making it. Love the fabric. I did wear it out a couple of times. Wearing maxi skirts is really normal. It's just for me. I just feel really weird. And you know, it was just preventing me from wearing it more. So I got my skirt and I decided to cut it shorter, add a ruffle from the bottom that I wasn't going to use anymore, and just do a quick little hack. And oh, I'm so happy now. Yeah, let's have a look at how that was done. Maybe you can give it a go. And it's such an easy hack. I mean, putting a ruffle on something is the easiest hack anyone can do. And you can put them wherever you want, on the ends of sleeves, like hems. You can put them on stuff. I don't do them often, but I did it now. I like rayon for it because it's so flowy and so thin. It won't create poofiness. I have my maxi skirt laid out on the table, and I've folded it so that the center front here is on the fold. So what you see there are the side seams stacked together. This is the front and that is the back over there. I have a yoga waistband. And from the waist, 6 centimeters or 14 inches. So the shape on the top of the skirt, of course, is curved, so you're not going to measure straight down. So I went measuring like that, and you can see a yellow line there that's curved. So that's where I want to cut it. It looks really short, but this is going to be way below my full hip. I'll get the ruffle from this excess fabric that I have there. So this length I calculated includes 3/8 of an inch seam allowance that I'm going to use to attach the ruffle there. Okay, I've decided I'm going to do a high-low hem, so I've cut on my yellow mark, but not right to the edge. About 4 inches before I get to the side seam, I started cutting lower, like an inch lower than my mark, and then I went down like that. So from my original mark on the back, that would be the same level hem as the front. I dropped that down by 6 inches, and then I just freehand curved that there, and then it would just be shorter in the front, longer in the back. When I attach the ruffle, it's going to look longer in the back, and then just like that. So I've cut the skirt, there's no going back now. It looks super short, but that's the whole point. So from the waist down, there's 14 inches across the front, so it was a curve. And then before getting to the side seam, about 4 inches before the side seam, I dropped it down by an inch, like 15 here. And then I started curving down. So at the center back from the waist back down, it's 20 inches instead of 14. That's at the front. So I'm gonna just calculate the circumference of all the bottom of this tiny skirt, just measure around, calculate a ruffle that is twice as much, so it's nicely ruffled. And the other thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna fuse a small piece of interfacing on the bottom here of all this, and I'm even gonna do it on this curved shape there to stabilize that. I don't want the weight of the ruffle distorting this. You know, this is only a rayon, it's not heavyweight. So I'm going to stabilize the bottom of the hem first, and then I'm going to attach the ruffles once I get to it. This is how the bottom of the skirt looks. You can see it's quite curved, and I've used a narrow strip of fusible interfacing. Actually, it does sort of conform to the curve if you're just careful. Like, I didn't have to do any puckers in the interfacing. I just cut normal, like, straight strips. It's lightweight interfacing. I have the bottom of my short piece of skirt, and to make putting the ruffle easier, I have unsewn partially the side seam there so that they're separated. I've done that on both sides. The front, you see, is more straight, and then the bottom curves down. That means that the front bottom has a shorter measurement than the back bottom. So I measured those and wrote them down, and I want my ruffle to be double that. So I had a really long piece. There's 1,000 seams in there, but the print is busy, so you can't tell. And so whatever measurement I got here, I multiplied that by 2, the front measurement, and that is that shorter piece there. And then whatever measurement I got here on this bottom curve, times 2 is that. So I'm going to be putting the ruffle on to the front separately and to the back separately. Once that's on, then I'll finish the side seam here in one go and include the ruffle that's going to hang there. This way is much easier than doing a huge ruffle on the round and trying to sew that on. You don't need to put yourself through that. I'm going to show you on a scrap how I like to gather. I just put the highest tension on my machine and the longest stitch length, 5.0. And then whatever length you're trying to gather, it will just gather it to half usually. It rarely strays from that, at least with these settings, and I've proved it over and over again. I do leave long threads on the start and the end in case I need to adjust and make it a little bit longer, you know, but look at this. See how it already gathers it for you and super evenly? So then you just put this onto whatever you want to sew and you have super neat gathers. Might be a little bit short, might be. That's why you leave extra there in case you need to adjust. But I found that the difference is sometimes minimal, like maybe an inch. This is the front part of the skirt and the ruffle just pinned there. The gathering I did with the machine was maybe an inch shorter than what it had to be. So I just pulled it a little bit. And that's why I had those long threads there to adjust, but it's pretty spot on. Usually what I did will ruffle it and make it half the size. That's why you cut double the width on this rectangle. When you're sewing gathers, you want to have the gathers on the top looking up at you and the smooth part down on the feed dogs. That's how you're going to control the gathers more. I'm going to sew that first and then deal with the back. Then when that's done, I can go and sew the side seams of the ruffle, including the little bit I undid from the skirt. Here is my refashioned skirt from my maxi Allegro. And I do refashions from my own makes because why not? You know, I tried to wear maxi, it didn't work out for me. Love the fabric, so why not do this? And look, if you hate high-low hems, you don't need to do that. That was just a last-minute thing that I did on a whim. I do the curves, all that stuff, proportions. I do them by eyeballing. I give you some measurements there as a reference, but if you want to do these types of hacks, you can do whatever you want. I knew that these 14 inches here up to there was what I wanted. And I knew that from measuring myself with a tape measure from my waist down to where I wanted it to end. And then I added 20 centimeters or 8 inches with this ruffle. And that would give me a finished length above my knee. I thought stabilizing the bottom of the skirt that I cut was important because the ruffle is gonna add weight. That's how it looks inside. I've pressed the seam up so the ruffle stays up, and you can't see where I have stabilized it like that. It covers it, that black interfacing. So no one would know that that interfacing is there. It's not pretty, but it is functional. Super easy hack. I had a lot of fun doing it. I love how this makes me feel now. I've always loved the fabric. I always love rayon, and having this at the right length and plus the added little ruffle detail makes it a skirt I'm gonna wear heaps, and I'm extremely happy with it. I am so much happier with this length and with this hack. This used to hit the floor and be just straight with the slits, and in theory I like that. I like that on other people, but I just can't get myself out the door in a maxi skirt, so it became this, and I am super happy. It's the same Allegro skirt, the same fit, everything just simplified, no pockets, yoga waistband up here, and then this higher hem on the front that curves down to a lower at the back, and it's just so me now. Up closer you can see this part here that has been stabilized before, as you saw, just to hold the ruffles up nicely. The side seam actually started there, and then I caught the ruffle side seam in one go, making it easier to put the ruffle there. Super flowy, lovely. I haven't made the updated pants or shorts yet, but I will be. I love the old ones. I'm gonna love the new ones as well. They're really easy to wear and fit. I hope you enjoyed this variety of sewing things that I've shared with you. All these things you can do to your skirts. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon with more sewing. Bye.
Don't you think this is starting to